Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Enigma Mode live stream. I'm excited today. This is a special one. I'm inviting all of you to formally join the public alpha test of Enigma Mode 2.0. 2.0 has progressed a lot. I'm really excited about it, and it's ready for people to actually play more in a more official way. So I've put it on the public server I run, Path of Magic, and I've made some changes to the server to accommodate new players. So in today's live stream, I'm going to be overviewing or showing off, introducing, let's say, all of the features, the main features, the game-changing features in 2.0. The reason I hadn't done this yet is because 2.0 revolves around the beginning of the game. So I wasn't really sure how to do that on the public server I run, Path of Magic, because the game's already begun, right? I just had to add a new start temple. I don't know why I didn't realize that before, but apparently when you add a new start temple in Valheim, your current character remembers the old one, okay? So that threw me off. But it turns out when someone makes a new character, they go to the new start temple. So this totally changes things. It means that any new character joining Path of Magic will be at almost an untouched area of the server. There's still some bases and stuff nearby, but compared to the very beginning area that is super condensed, it's basically free for people to play on. So that's basically what I'm going to be showing today. I'm going to just show all the different features. I'm generating a new world in single player just because it's easier for me to show the features off. That way I can destroy things or delete things or make examples, and I don't have to fix them later. But everything I'm showing you is available now to try on Path of Magic. And if you want to access that server, that's fine. You can just get the Discord info. It's public. So you can find the Discord chat or the Discord link to the pool side. And then there's a chat in the pool side or a channel called server info. And that has the login information for the server. So anyone can join. You don't need to sign up for a wait list or anything like that. Just find the information, join the Discord. You should probably ask some questions, but you don't have to. You could just log in and play. That's totally fine. I'm looking for more people specifically to join and have kind of a beginning experience. I want to see more about how it feels for people, okay? So our world is almost generated. So this is what's going to happen. You're going to join Path of Magic, and as long as you make a new character, you're actually going to trigger the start temple. Okay? So right now we can see I'm just in the start temple, nothing crazy. But then I move, and then boom. All right, this is called the Enigma moment. It's when Valheim ceases to be what you think it is and becomes what it really is. Okay? It's the letting go of your preconceptions. This will happen. Whoever joins the public server next will trigger the new start temple. I set it up so that I didn't trigger it, and just whoever logs in next on a new character will exactly what you just saw will happen. So they'll trigger a whole new center with paths leading out and everything. So one of the main things I want to cover for those of you who are interested, basically the idea with 2.0 or Enigma Mode 2.0 is to rework the beginning of the Valheim experience so that from the very beginning of the game, you have access to more of Valheim. Because basically, what I believe is that Valheim is a really beautiful game. It's incredible. It's got this great world gen. But because of the way it progresses people, they end up having the same experience over and over and over and over again. So what I'm trying to do is make it so every time you start a new server in 2.0 or a new world, you're going to be in a different area, right? The start temple's not where you're used to. So in this case, we have a little bit of an issue, actually, because we have meadows, and we have plains, and we have mountains, But like, there's no black forest here at all. You know what I mean? We have to find it over there. So the actual player starting in this spot might be a little unlucky. But most of the time, it would be something more like this. Like you start in this meadow here, there's plains, and then there's black forest like right nearby. Typically, or it's something like this. There's a bunch of black forest, that kind of stuff nearby. Either way, whenever you start in 2.0, you're going to be in an area with more biomes than you're used to. Whereas in normal Valheim, you start in this area, always in the center meadow. Okay? So when you join on Path of Magic, the public server, then you'll be in the new Start Temple area, but it's on a world that people have already been playing on for like 2 years. And there's been over 200 people with builds and all sorts of stuff. I actually went through and I destroyed some things to like turn them into ruins because they were placed things I built ages ago. So it's like meant to be a big world to explore. And now in a way that's like more compatible if you want to make a new character, you can have something more similar to a new experience. I will say one thing, if you play on Path of Magic, it still has the old vegetation system. So like right now, if I look at my instance count, I only have 1,500 instances. And that's a recurring theme in Enigma Mode 2.0 is to spread the locations out, reduce the instant count as much as possible. So a lot of 2.0 exists in areas that have like 700 instances, 1,200, 1,500. That's what you'll see in actual Enigma Mode. On Path of Magic, I'm not restarting the server or anything like that, so it still has the old generation. So that's why it's kind of like a test. I'm not actually launching a fresh 2.0 server until February. But for now, I want to do this kind of soft launch of it on Path of Magic with the new features because this will give people time to actually figure out how things work. I'll have more time to adjust and to make things more common, less common, adjust the loot rates, etc., etc. But first things first, you're going to join, and then you're going to try and find the Ether boss chest. Okay, that's what everyone joins. They do for their initial progression. So when you join, you'll see the thing, and then you'll be able to get the Vescover, and you'll have no map on. So basically, you do this, and then it'll look where the thing is. And the Ether Temple is almost always really, really close to the start, so you don't have to worry too much about it. And then you just approach it, and as you get near the Ether Temple, you're going to see this show up. This is called a boss chest. And it says chest of Ethers, 200 wood and 30 flint. So let's say that we painstakingly acquire our materials here. There we go. Okay. This is what's going to happen. You join. This is probably going to be in your first session. You find Ether's boss chest, and then you need to get the flint and the wood. So this is basically just introducing you to the fact that boss chests are how you progress in Path of Magic. As soon as you turn it in, boom, the boss chest is completed, and you get, what do you get? You get the progression items. But not just the progression item, you also get dragon tears. And this is a really important part of Enigma Mode. You can think of Enigma as Valheim's New Game Plus. It's a way to have a Valheim experience where everything gets unlocked much, much earlier in the game. So as you see, like, probably in your first session, as soon as you find the boss chest, or you find Ether's altar, and then you get 200 wood and 30 flint, which is, I mean, probably first session. Maybe second session, but this is probably going to happen the first time you play, within the first hour or two. Boom, you already have dragon tears. And the reason I wanted to do that is because in actual Valheim, loads of items for building that are really fun are gated behind the artisan table. And normally to make this artisan table, you have to progress all the way to killing Motor, which is actually the end of most people's playthrough. So think about that for a second. The point where you unlock most build items is after most people stop playing. Okay? That, from my perspective, is a problem. I think that Valheim is a better game when most of the build items are technically available almost straight away. That way, by the time you get to the Ashlands, you're not like brand new to Ashland's resources. You've been dabbling with them, and now you have a source of loads of them. That's the attitude. Like, you can get stuff everywhere, but I don't want to get too tangential. The main thing to understand is the Aether's boss chest. This is going to be the first thing you do when you join Enigma Mode 2.0, and this is how you progress. You find the boss altar, and then you do the boss chest. You could try and fight the boss, but the bosses are all like end game experiences. They're really hard to kill. You need a team of coordinated effort. So chances are you're going to just get ganked immediately, and then you're going to realize why I said that you shouldn't fight the boss and you should do the boss chest. But it's okay. I know you're going to try and kill Aether anyway. I forgive you. It's okay. Aether's going to teach you why we use boss chests. But you'll do that, and then boom. Okay, that's the progression. You have these paths. They're going off. You can explore them, okay? I guess I should talk a bit about paths, because this is like a driving force in Enigma. When you actually play, so Enigma is a no map, no portal experience that you can brute force the map to be there if you really want to. Like, it's not like I made it impossible, but it's designed to be a no map, no portal experience, and then the game gives people portaling situations. Okay, so it's not fully no portal. As you're going to see, especially in the World Serpent, there are plenty of teleporting mechanisms. It's just the player can't just build a teleporter wherever they want. That's gone in Enigma Mode, okay? But because of that, you need to be able to make your way around the world, right? And in no map, no portal mode, it's very easy to get lost. And what I found personally when I played a lot of Valheim, I like sailing, don't get me wrong. But the thing about sailing I don't like in Valheim is how it's forced upon people. Basically, you're on an island and the spawn RNG of your island that you start on determines how forced you are to sail or not sail or whatever, right? I don't really like that way of developing. I prefer that the player can do what they want to. So basically, they're more encouraged to do what they want, if that makes sense, instead of me inconveniencing them to try and force them to do what I want them to do. Which, obviously, I do that in different ways, right? I'm literally doing that with no map. I know people don't like no map, no portal. I'm forcing them to do it and trying to make the rest of this experience so fun that they forgive me. You know what I mean? But you have to be really careful with that kind of thing. Like, you can't get away with it too much. So that's why my mentality in 2.0 is like, players should be able to walk everywhere. Because one of the things I noticed about dying, it's like, if you die in Valheim and you can run back to your body, it's not so bad. Like, really, it's even if it's like a 5-minute run, it's not so bad. What really sucks is when you die in Valheim and you have to sail to your body. Because then, even if it's 5 minutes away, it could be 20 minutes, it could be 30, there could be no wind, there could be whatever weather, it becomes inhospitable. You know what I mean? So, that's something that I try and work around. And the way that I try and work around that is by giving people options. So this path system is the driving force that spreads players throughout the world. When you join, you'll get a start temple, and as you saw, you get a north, south, east, and west path, okay? As you progress down those paths, they will continue building. They'll lead you to new biomes. You could use them to get to safety over to the meadows, Black Forest area, or you could use them to get into the more dangerous areas, right? I rather foolishly have gone on one that will take some time to reach the world edge. And what I'm going to do, actually... Oh, but the other one has a mountain ravine. Alright, we're just going to keep going with this one. But pretty much, you keep going down these paths, and this also has purpose to it, because Valheim's very beautiful. But oftentimes, you can't really see the beauty so much because you're in danger, you're running from something, you don't have a good vantage point. So by adding these walkways that go through the world, you end up getting a lot of really nice scenic Valheim views, just unintentionally, if that makes sense. Because Valheim itself is very pretty. It just often doesn't put the player in a position where they can see that. Make sense? Like, that's happening right now, if you think about it. Like, this is all gray, right? That's because we're in the ocean, and that's the weather right now. So that's just how it is. And you need these things to then feel the calmness when the weather clears up. So I'm not trying to say that they don't matter. They actually are important. You need that negative space. But in general, I find that in normal Valheim, it's just too much forcing the player to do a certain thing, right? So here you can see you have those 4 directions you can go in. That allows the player to get to a better area more easily, right? But in order to do that, you need resources. As you saw earlier, for me to continue this path, I have to pay it. So I have to get coins in order to keep the path growing. Makes sense? So what a player will do, basically, is they'll progress it in a direction that they feel curious about. It keeps going and building, and then eventually it gets to a point where it will stop, right? Like right now it just stopped because I was flying, and it doesn't actually build forward when the person flies. But we could keep going. And as we get closer to the edge of the world, it'll ask us for more coins to keep going. Okay, so we're going to get to this Mistlands area soon. Right now we're in the swamp. You can kind of imagine how this system will take you through all of the possible biomes that Valheim has to offer. Make sense? But before then, I want to talk to you now about the world circuit. Okay? Because while it's true that Enigma Mode 2.0 does a lot of things to the beginning of the gameplay experience, in general, I have the attitude in Valheim that the game could do more to get people to build and reward people to build. So now that you know a bit more about the beginning of the Enigma Mode 2.0 experience, right? You have to do the boss chests. You start in a different situation. I'll talk to you a bit about the end game, but I guess I'll tell you about one more feature. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes you're not near a black forest, or maybe for whatever reason, you spawn in an area that's no good. Well, not to worry, because once per week, every player gets a free boat. Okay? And it's actually stronger than a normal boat. So it's not going to get destroyed as quickly, and you can tell it's pretty fast. Okay? It's not the fastest boat, but this way, whenever you join, you can just go to the water, and you get 1 free boat per week. I did it that way so that on the off chance that a spawn isn't good for whatever reason, that technically you could still, make it somewhere else, right? But it's limited. You won't just get free boats over and over and over and over again. You only get 1 free boat per week. And you'll get it the moment you go near the water. You can see why the boats are a little bit faster. They have to be. But I got distracted there. I want to focus on the end game. The free boat, that's something in the beginning building experience. So we need to talk about the World Serpent, this enormous structure I'm on right now. Okay. So imagine you're progressing, you're playing, and you've gotten one of the paths all the way to the end. Okay? That means that you have been progressing one of these Enigma paths. This one, okay? So imagine you're progressing, you've paid the tributes, you've been playing for a bit, it's been a couple sessions, and the path, you've taken it all the way to the end of the world. Once that happens, it starts the World Serpent event, okay? You'll then be able to move up to this thing called the World Serpent, all right? And now I'll just kind of travel down the World Serpent a bit, and you can get a better sense of what's up here. As you can see, there's divergers sometimes, so we have some coin traders. Don't mind, in single player they spawn like this, but... Uh-oh. Oh no! Got me. The coin traders have these anti-cheat mechanisms, so if you attack them and you have like God mode or fly or cheat on or something, it's like, what are you doing? So now that I've shown this, actually, I mostly just needed to show you the beginning of the experience, whereas now I can actually just log on to the server that you'll be playing on. I think that'll make more sense to people, because I'm talking about this because it's publicly available now. Anyone can try it. So I may as well record from the actual server that you'll be playing on. Just give me a moment here. I need to change my config so that I'm not in Enigma mode locally. Okay. Now I'm starting it back up. I don't know how it likes this black screen thing, to be honest. Sometimes it like disrupts the stream if it loses the source, but should be back in a moment. Good stuff. All right. So now I'm just going to join Palm, and I'm going to show you the World Serpent because it's already activated on Palm. Because Palm's a server that loads of people have played on. It's got loads of buildings. People do their empowered progression, that kind of thing, right? So in Path of Magic, the World Serpent is already present, okay? So now what I'm going to show you is I'm going to show the new things that the World Serpent has, and we're going to look at the different features and mechanics that are unique to the World Serpent. Because there's actually a whole lot to it, and I think people are going to have fun. It's basically a vanilla-friendly, building-focused custom biome, okay, that wraps around the entirety of the world. So I'll use a little bit of dev trickery here. Hey, Narsha's here. So basically, when you join, okay, I joined and I'm here, okay? But when you join, you're not going to be here. You're going to be at the new start temple, which is over here, okay? And this hasn't been activated. So whoever joins first in the new temple is going to activate it, and then the paths will start going off. And the advantage of this area is it's relatively less played in. And it certainly hasn't had any beginning progression. Okay, so there is actually a path, and there's other bases from other stuff going on. But there's not really that much stuff here. Compared to this area, which is fully saturated, it's got like 10,000 instances. And if I just go like a little bit south over here, you know, if I go into this area, for example, and then I give it a moment, you can see there's still thousands and thousands and thousands of instances. It'll go up to like 12K depending on where I am. So that's one of the reasons I thought it was important to move the starting area. That'll make it so it actually feels like it's more like a new experience for people, okay? So when you join, you're going to show up here, and also there won't be a map. That's just not going to be there for you. So you can use a cartography table map if you want. Like if I go to, oh no, you won't see it because of how I'm recording. But basically, there's certain maps people like to use. I don't mind, to be honest. The thing I don't like about maps, and the reason I disable them for actual gameplay, is this icon here. It makes it so you're never lost. And for a game world to be immersive, you have to feel like you could be lost. It's really, really important. Um, I don't like the yellow icon here. So when you use maps that are just a map of what you've explored, I don't think that that's bad. I'm not like against maps. I'm against GPS icons in video games. I feel like they really screw things up in the long run and cause a lot of problems. So that's why I'm all hyped about no map. But again, you can use client-side mods if you really want to override that. It is possible. There's mods that change the cartography table, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to get into that, though. Let's make sure to focus on the World Serpent. So you're going to join. All that stuff's happening over here. Relatively new experience, but in a world people have already been building on, with a lot of veteran players who log in occasionally, that kind of thing. So there's people you can ask in Discord about mechanics, and they can explain how things work. But now let's actually look at the World Serpent layer, because this is kind of like a trick. Basically, I believe that Valheim, building is one of the best parts of Valheim. It's really, really, really awesome. But Valheim itself doesn't do a good job of kind of giving the players good places to build. Does that make sense? So the idea of the World Serpent is it's sort of like an end game biome to make, you know, like the best possible building situation, okay? So if we look at our instances right now, we are sitting at 338. And if we look around us, we can see that aside from these occasional diverger, right? Like here we have a coin trader who's offering something. There's no other monsters here. And that's done on purpose. It's supposed to be as buildable as possible. Make sense? So there's all of these resource nodes and all of these things that kind of show up here. They show up a little late because I'm moving too fast, but when you're playing, they normally show up ahead of you, right? Like that. As you can see, there's coin traders. And you can build stuff up here. And you don't have to be afraid, right? Like right now, there's loads of instances. That's because of where I am. It's like right below this old school path as well. So on Path of Magic, you're going to have areas like that where there's just loads of instances because of the fact that it's an old server. And that's actually one of the reasons that I'm restarting it. Well, not restarting Path of Magic, but I'm opening a new server in February of next year. But for now, we're going to be playing on this one. Good chance to get some of the alpha testing done. What I want to show you is that there's this custom biome, right? So you go around the World Serpent, and as you're exploring the World Serpent, depending on the biome that you're in, the stuff that's there will change. Okay? So you always get these kind of ghost ships. These are like, you know, the idea is that the World Serpent like ripped out of the ground and it like brought up a bunch of magic ethereal stuff, and we're in the afterlife and there's Vikings and stuff, right? So it makes sense that like there's a bunch of, you know, ships that represent the ships that got sunk in the ocean or were lost in war or whatever. You know what I mean? That's the idea. It's kind of like a ship graveyard. And it also has this thing like you can find the chests. Sometimes they're empty, but other times they have stuff in them. As you can see here, you can get silver necklaces and rubies, coins, amber pearls. These are really useful for getting the upgraded quest boat. So that's a whole other thing I'll get into. But as you can see, depending on where you are on the World Serpent, it changes. Okay, so you can see that on the left, there's more Ashland stuff, right? But technically, we're still in the ocean. But now we're in the Ashlands, and it should actually... Did I, like, forget to... There we go. Now it's changing. Okay. So now yeah, the Ashlands needs its red vibe. It needs its weather. Once it has the weather stuff, it looks cool. So you see that basically the World Serpent makes a custom version of the biome that it's in, right? So we were in the ocean over there, and so it's more like there's ships, there's rocks, that kind of thing. Whereas now we're in the Ashlands, so it's Ashland assets, just kind of random stuff floating around. And then we look at our instance counts, and you can see 200 instances. Usually it's under 400. And again, the purpose of this is to be an area that's highly compatible for building huge bases if the player wants to. Because you don't have to worry about combat, you don't have to worry about raids, and you're starting in an area that has just a couple hundred instances. For reference, a Black Forest in vanilla has 6,000 instances. So this should help a lot with performance and big builds. Not just because you're starting with fewer instances, but also because of the fact that there's no combat in these areas. Players aren't going to be trying to fight a boss nearby or do a charred fortress or anything like that, because we're on the edge of the world, way up in the sky, right? So this is basically unused area that has nothing competing for it, okay? And that's why I'm so into the World Serpent. And as you can see, it gets super dense sometimes. So like there's certain areas that are pretty flat, you know, like right now, for example. There's not too much stuff going on here. But then you'll find other areas where there's just loads of stuff. It's almost like you're in a cave or something, you know? And you'll have to explore more. But as you can see, as you explore, you'll find different coin traders. And then also, I know everyone's been trying to get more of the shipmasters. So now I'll share all of the updates to the ship quests. Because I finally overhauled all of them. I made them more reliable, and I made them easier to do. Okay? So when you're on the World Serpent, you're going to find long shipmasters and carve masters. You can still find them in the overworld, and I increased the rate at which they spawn by 4 times. So it's still possible to find them normally. Maybe you won't. I'm assuming that by the time you get to the World Serpent, you probably have seen one already, but the World Serpent will guarantee that you can find the long shipmasters. Okay, so like if you can't find one, you can just go to the World Serpent and you will find one there. Okay? Once you find one, then all you have to do is just move close to them, and they're going to explain to you what to do, basically. I think... yeah, I had Ghost on. So, if I move around near him, he says, build me 2 stacks of fine wood. Alright. So, we build 1 stack. He's like, alright, I need 1 more stack of fine wood. Okay, because remember, maybe the player has no idea who this guy is. They don't know anything about the quest boats. They don't know that having a quest boat in Enigma is, like, really important and a big deal, right? So they're going to find them and be like, what's this? And then if they move, it tells them what it is, right? Self-education. So we build our second thing, and he's like, ayo! Okay, cool. Fill your longship with 180 iron, 180 silver, and 180 bronze. Okay? Now, technically, this is the most confusing point, okay? Because the player's like, okay, I'm up here, right? You sort of have to remember that that's where the longship master is, and then you bring your ship near them underneath, okay? So basically, I would then have my ship here. Let's do this a bit smarter, though. I need to make a ship, and that ship needs to have iron, 180 iron. It needs to have 180 bronze, and it needs to have 180 silver. Okay? Bum, bum, bum. I stole your idea, Fish, by the way, about the catapults. And I had a feeling as soon as I did this, I was like, yeah, players are definitely going to catapult off of this thing. But I'll show you why. I actually made it a lot easier to travel. And I'll show you how all of that system works soon. But for now, actually, we have all of our metal. Okay, obviously for the player, this is going to take a while. It's not something they just do straight away. But we now know, okay, that guy, he's got his fine wood. He's up there on the World Serpent. And he told us to bring a boat with the stuff he asks for in the hold, okay? So we're going to put all of the metals in the hold. And then I'm on the ship. And now what I have to do pretty much is just sail underneath where he is. And then the boat will get upgraded. If I did everything right. Sometimes it can be a bit weird to figure out like where exactly they are. But pretty much you just kind of have to sail around. And eventually you'll get close enough. Oh, yep. There we go. Okay, so now this is a Gnar. So if we look in it, it's got more storage space. I had to reduce the storage space, unfortunately. It used to be like 5 times this, but it was causing save corruption. And nobody likes save corruption. So now it has more storage. It also gives you motor, as you can see here, and also ether. So you have constant eke and motor when you're near the Gnar. In addition to that, it's faster, and it has a huge amount of health. It's got like 100,000 health or something like that. So there you go. Okay. Now, I don't want to get too much into detail about the quest boats. I just wanted to show you all that I revamped the system, and I got rid of the way it was before. Like, you had to build a cauldron and then a spice rack, and it was super random. You had to kind of know ahead of time what to do. So I reworked it, so now, like, players are just going to find these guys and then learn about it and do it without even knowing. Okay, that's the idea. We also got a bunch of coin traders. And one of the things I want to show you is something players haven't really utilized yet. And I'm going to show how to do it. Because I have a feeling if people knew about these things, they would actually use them more. Oh, hey, perfect. Okay, here we go. So here we have a Beastmaster. And I know this is expensive, 12 coin piles. But they're worth it, I swear. They are. So basically, there's these 3 different kinds of Askvin mounts. Okay? I'm going to pay this guy off. He does his thing. We got some extra stuff. And then we get one of these fancy Beastmaster coins. Okay? So now I can just toss this, and it creates one of the special mounts. And these mounts are heavily customized, so it's not the same as you just putting a saddle on an Askvin. For example, these guys, all of these mounts follow you. And I found that that makes it way better, because in Vanilla Valheim, mounts can't handle terrain changes. Like, they literally, like, if you have to go up a terrain change like this, the mount's just, like, not going to be able to do it. Whereas if you put a monster on follow, it gets to wherever you are. Like, it just, the pathfinding works way better, okay? But so you can still just use it normally, right? So we're now on our riding Askvin. And they're faster than the player runs. And you can use them for a long time. So I feel like probably I could make it a little faster, to be honest. Because when I originally designed them, they were designed for terrain. And in Valheim, there's just not that much flat paths to take advantage of a mount, right? Whereas here, Feels good. Could be a bit faster, but aside from that, I'm happy with it. And so basically, the thing about these guys is because you can set them to follow, right? I just jumped off of him, and he's still following me. So it just makes it way easier to actually use the mounts, because also now, whenever we want to fight something, you know, we can just jump off, and then you now have a fighting mount as well that's also doing something. It's pretty cool. So Fish asks, can we breed the mounts with each other? I mean, I guess technically, but they're just gonna birth like normal monsters, if that makes sense. They're not gonna do something special. Let's see, how is the speed here? Because I'm like comparing it to this, obviously, which is like too much, right? But compared to actually running, let's see, if I actually run, well, the Aspen can definitely run faster than I can. Yeah, it's just hard for me to tell because of the perspective. Oops, I took the saddle off. That's funny. Yeah, there's nothing actually special about the saddle. It's the Aspen itself that has the special data that makes it faster. So it is faster, but because the path is so big, it kind of feels like it's a little slow to me. So I think probably I'll adjust this a little bit. Let's see, actually, if I go into data, actually, I'll just leave it be for now. I'm not too worried about it. It's also, maybe I'm messing something up by turning. I don't actually have much experience using the mounts. So, like, they go the direction, and then you press shift once. Ah, I see, okay. Yeah, I feel like it just needs to be a little bit faster, and then it'll be fine. But they're also really powerful in battle. So, there's a couple other things that make them really strong. But this one is not my favorite one. My favorite one is the swimming Axeman, because it basically can replace a ship, and you can use it to travel like from this continent to that continent to that continent, and it's really cool to be able to just like jump on an Axeman, sail around by it swimming. I know that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but there's like a whole gameplay element to it and everything. So those are a thing. That's pretty cool. There's a higher chance of these now, so you can find them more often. I'm going to add a note here to update the data. Update data for Axeman mounts to be faster. So I didn't design them to go on like this huge thing that wraps around the entirety of the world. I did not think about that. So they're too slow. I need to make them a little bit faster. I'll do that after the stream though. I want to make sure that this stream is focused mostly on these Enigma Mode features. So now that we've covered that, there's more coin traders up here. The World Serpent biome exists. Each different biome it goes through looks different, right? So the Deep North is different than the ocean, and that's different than the Ashlands, etc., etc., etc. Okay, now let's talk about actually using this place, because there are 3 different kinds of commands you can use on the World Serpent. The first one I want to show you is actually, I need my buddy. I need to find that Aspen again. Huh. Oh, was he behind me the other way? I think so. So basically, the World Serpent allows you to teleport. You can teleport to the north, south, east, west, north, south, northeast, southwest, and southeast. Okay? The catch is you have to be on the World Serpent already, or at least nearby the World Serpent already. That's all that it takes. And basically, this is all you do. You can just go say ride ? And then you'll get a list of all of the commands So you can see that you can teleport, and then also there's rise and my rock, okay? So let's say I want to go to the deep north. I'm going to go ride N, and then I'm going to get teleported up in the sky, pull down, and look at this. I'm now in the furthest of the north, okay? And then we can do the same thing. We could go, I want to go to the west. So ride W. I'm going to get teleported. And then boom, I'm now in the west. And so you can do the same thing. We can go like northwest. And you can imagine how that works for every one of the 8 different cardinal directions. All right? So this allows players to teleport around the edges of the world, meaning that the ashlands in the deep north are now right next to each other. Okay? So one thing to keep in mind is that you can actually use the teleports as long as you can see the world serpent. So normally a player would see the world serpent from down under, right? If you can see it, you can use the teleport. So now let's go to the northeast. Boom. And we can just teleport up there. So there's lots of ways to get up to the world serpent. That's just one of them, using these teleport commands. There's also another command, because I figured, well, we got all of these crazy floating rocks, right? But players need a way to navigate the floating biome, because otherwise the floating rocks are something they have to build up to. They're not really as interactable. Like, let's say I want to go loot that chest. How do I get it? Well, when you're near the world serpent, there's a special command called rise. So you can teleport 130 meters above where you currently are, and then you'll be given slowful. Okay? So this allows you to essentially float and then drop down anywhere in the world serpent that you want. And let's say that you're trying to get onto this red crystal thing, but you miss it. Well, that's not a problem, because you can just use rise, and then you'll get sent up in the air again with slowful, and this allows you to just look down and aim where you want to go. Obviously right now it's like freezing in the deep north, so I can't see anything. But you can imagine how, like, let's say I wanted to build a base on top of here. Well, now I have a way to easily move around in the world serpent layer, and if I fall off of it or something, I've got multiple options, right? I could teleport, or I could just use rise to get slowful and fall back down like this. So in addition to that, there's also a whole resource system, all right? So these floating rocks, you're going to be building, right? Yeah, there's a whole system for coins. You build things, you get money. I'm not going to go over that. What I want to show you is a new system to give another way to acquire building resources. And bear with me, because this is a little bit laggy for a moment, but you get loads of build resources. I don't really know how to change that, to be honest. So this is what you do. You find a floating rock that is actually above the world serpent, and that's really important, because what you're going to do is you're going to mine the floating rock, and it's then going to give you a bunch of building resources that you can use to build stuff on the world serpent. Okay, so let's start mining this. There we go. We trigger the first part of it. We fall down. And then we end up with all these things. So these... Obviously, that's kind of problematic that it's floating, right? But it's not so bad because we have rise. So we do have ways to get things like on the way down. I'll probably figure out a way to make the item drops full, but basically there's a system that converts the items that drop into extra building resources, okay? So now we can see we're going through here. We're collecting the stuff, and we see that there's some stone, right? we see that there's stone. We got a bunch of stone, but then we also got scrap metal and wood and some other stuff like that. So I need to overtune this, to be honest, because I tried to get rid of the lag, and I did actually get rid of the lag spike, but in doing so, now you only get stone instead of the extra building stuff. So I got to work on that. But the idea is that you can farm the rocks for building resources, and then the rocks will just respawn unless you've built something like actually in that area or nearby. So this should be an easy way for people to acquire a large amount of building resources. And that'll help people with these bigger bases here in the World Serpent layer. Okay? So now we've covered that. You know about Rise. You know about... yes. Okay. So. Alright. The rocks explode. If you want to build a base, that doesn't really square with the fact that the rocks explode, right? So basically, you're going to use the command that I showed you earlier to get on top of a rock. And once you're on top of one, you just go my rock. Okay? And then, boom, in the chat it says Overeager Jarl fortified a floating rock. And now look, we try and mine the rock, but we can't because it's too hard. This allows a player to pick a rock that they want to stay the way it is for building purposes. Okay, so you can break it up and then do that command, or you can just do the command straight away, and then that'll allow you to make the rock sturdy so that you can build it. And Fish made a good point. He said, are there better locks mounts? I wanted to make one, but I didn't end up finishing it. It's completely possible to make better locks mounts. From my perspective, though, the locks itself, like, yeah, you can make it faster, you can give it more health, that definitely helps, definitely makes it a better mount. But because of how big it is, it's kind of inconvenient, and ultimately, the thing the locks mount needs is a storage system. It needs to be basically like an advanced cart. Make sense? So, I actually have the data in the Enigma project for something called a pack loxen, because that was one of the things the coin traders were meant to sell. But then I ended up getting, like, overwhelmed when I tried to make the script to actually give the locks inventory, because it's not like a simple thing. You can't just give the locks inventory space. You can't just turn the locks into a container. You have to basically make, like, a system that makes an invisible container under the player every time they interact with the locks, and then that gets populated with what it says the lock should have, which means you need to store the string of items, and then that means that there's limits, and you have to transfer that string into the container that the player looks at each time they open the lock's supposed inventory, because technically the locks doesn't have an inventory. There's just things the player thinks are in the locks, and you put them in a chest that looks like it's being opened by interacting with the locks. And it's like a whole complicated thing for something that players will barely use until I actually do it. So I basically just was like, fuck this, I'm done. But it is totally possible. Honestly, if people like express interest in that, I'll probably do it sooner. But right now what I'm focused on is like getting all of the main frameworks built and constructed for Enigma Mode and Path of Magic, so that we can, like, you know, just find a couple of the adjustments, make some little tweaks in these things, so that when I do the actual, like, more public launch, where I launch the mod pack publicly, I make YouTube content about it, I try and actually push it more. I want to do that after we've had time to polish little things and adjust the little details, right? That's the idea. That's the mentality. Let's see, how are we doing? We're at nice an hour. Nice. Beast of Burden is a good one. That's a cool mod. I'm glad you used that. It's definitely a great way to handle it too, like, because the locks itself, I mean, it works great if it just has some inventory space. If you think of the locks as like the cart 2.0, then it doesn't really matter if it's slower. You know what I mean? But in vanilla Valheim, Locke's mounts are broken. Like, they're definitely, like, visually aesthetic and nothing else. You know what I mean? Because, like, the Lox is huge, but it gets killed by a couple Death Skeeto bites. It's like, alright. And then it can't really attack the Death Skeeto, and it's really slow. It's like, alright. Like, did they actually ride these mounts around? Like, do they actually want people to use them? I don't know. To be honest, I don't really understand. I'm glad you found Beast of Burden, though. That's a good mod. Definitely a good mod. Alright. So, let's see. I've talked about the World Serpent. Talked about the New Start Temple. There's Builder's Islands. I guess I can talk more about those. Okay. So, as you sail around in Path of Magic, you're going to find that there are new islands. Okay? And basically, I took the islands package made by Ashenius in the Valheim World Editing Discord. So credit to him. He made these really cool islands, and I used them as a starting point, and then I made 3 different variants of islands and added some incentives. Okay? So before those of you listening, the islands you found didn't really have any incentive. Okay? I hadn't added them yet. So let me show you what I'm talking about. We're going to look for a Builder's Islands. Then we're going to go nearby one, 8,100, and then 2130. That works. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. I keep doing reset M. That's why. And clear, of course. So basically, you're going to find these islands from time to time. And the change I made, for those of you who've already played on it, is that I added loot to the islands. And not just a little bit of loot. I figured, well, if I actually want people to use these islands, I need to make it rewarding to find them and to encourage players to build on them. Make sense? Oh, I like your idea of the Lox destroying the Skeetos. That's a good idea, to be honest, because like I like the idea of companions that are useful, you know. So like having a Lox with you, meaning could translate to you don't have to worry about Death Skeetos or they get automatically killed or stomped. You know what I mean? I think that's totally cool. We could definitely do something like that. But for now, I want to focus on this. So basically, there's 3 different kinds of islands that you can find in Enigma Mode 2.0. Okay, this is the light island. There's heavy, light, and blank. Okay, this has a few assets and it has these boxes. And now, if you actually look at the boxes, look at this. Look at all this building material, right? It's all RNG depending on what you get, right? Like, got a bunch of wood, silver arrows, more wood, some seeds. So basically now every island has these crates, and the crates get filled through RNG with building resources, and sometimes they're, you know, just like 200 Growlstone. Okay, useful. Other times, they're absurd amounts of building resources, right? Like the building boxes, the biome building boxes have loads of stuff. The idea here is that, like, to increase the chance that a player stumbles upon the island, maybe they crash into it or whatever, and then they're like, oh shit, I could build something here. Or they feel like there's some of the loot they're going to take, but it's too much loot, so they're not going to take all of it probably. That's the idea. Okay, so let's look at a couple other islands so you can get a better sense of this. These are the more light ones, as I mentioned. So now let's go to another light island. And you'll see what I mean by light and heavy. Oops. Basically, Ashenius made these islands that are like Pirate Cove Islands with a bunch of assets and skeletons and ghosts and wraiths and all sorts of stuff. I really like them. But I think that it works better when there's both those and other things. Make sense? I think that that is like a better situation. So here we have another light island. And then if we look around, yeah, sometimes the chests are floating. I'll figure out how to fix that at some other point. But either way, you can open them and then boom, you know, loads of building resources. Tons and tons and tons of building resources. As you can see, depending on the RNG, you could literally get enough stuff for like a whole entire base just on one little island. And the idea for that, yeah, is to like make it fun to find them. So like, yeah, sometimes you're going to crash into the island and that's going to suck. But then if you realize that there's like loads and loads of building resources and maybe some of them you need, I don't know, maybe it's better, right? So the idea here is the islands have loads of stuff. Not just like one little chest with a pile of wood. Like literally enough stuff you could make a house. Like you could just start right now. Make sense? So now let's look at a heavy island. Basically, these islands are made by taking Ashenius's islands and then reducing the chance of things by a bunch. That's why I call them light, okay? And the reason that I think there should be light and heavy is because it helps increase the variety feeling, okay? These are basically the small ones. Now let's actually look at one of the bigger islands, okay? They're called Loki. What did he call them again? One second, I gotta look it up. It's called Loki OC Island. There we go. Okay, so these are big. We're gonna go to 2890 and then 90 for... Wait, what? 2890, yeah, 9400. Okay. Bum, 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 bum. Nice. Okay, so as you can see here, it's pretty much the same thing, except it's larger, it has more stuff, okay? And these islands, they might also have like a monster or some ghosts, whatever else. I think I actually got rid of most of the monsters because I realized like they didn't really serve that much of a purpose. It's more beneficial if the islands are kind of like safe areas that have a bunch of building resources. Make sense? So this is all Ashenius. The thing I've done is I've made it so there's these lootable chests that have building resources. Like these aren't normally in the blueprint, okay? So you can find these bigger islands, you can find the smaller islands, and then there's a third kind of island called a building island, or a... Give me a second. Locations, list, blank, builders, islands. Okay. So these are part of the community project that I've been working on called the Floating Islands Project, where basically people in the community make a floating island template for people to build on, and then they submit it to me, and then I'm making a mechanism for all of those to exist in Enigma mode. So it's like something the community can contribute that ends up being played on by anybody who uses Enigma mode later, okay? So for now, they're very simple. They just start like this. Like, they need to be blank because of reasons in the future. Basically, this is sort of like a placeholder. And there's going to be an activation process, and I'll explain how that works a little bit. I won't go into too much detail. But one of the things that Fish told me was that when you have islands that don't have assets on them, it's really easy to crash onto them, if that makes sense. So basically, this red crystal makes sure that the player knows that it's there, because you see the crystal, even if it's like, you know, late or it's storming or whatever, the crystal makes it really, really easy to see things showing up. Oh, that's a good point, Fish, about the building height requirement. Yeah, there's like I don't remember what what the exact limit is. I think it's like there, like where the sand ends. Because like right now, yeah, I have Infinity Hammer, so it like lets me build anywhere. But the player, I think, can only build like, yeah, you see how the coins like float, right? So the players can't place anything below that point. So I think this island's fine. I believe so. The ones that you saw before were spaced differently. So let me know if the current ones aren't buildable, but I think these ones will be okay. But the idea here basically is this will have a teleport system. So the player comes over here and they somehow activate the crystal. And once they activate the crystal, they get sent 2,000 meters up into the air. And a floating rock, a special community-built floating base is here. Okay? And the idea is that it's very similar to the World Serpent. It gives the player a place to build, like, up in the heavens, and they get better discounts on things, right? So that's why basically there will be, like, a platform, right? Like spawn, rock 4, let's say copper, coast, whatever, it doesn't matter. So you can imagine, right? Like, they'll go up here, and then this is like their base in the sky, their paradise base. Anything they build, like when they buy stuff using their coins, they get a better rate, etc., etc. They can teleport the cart up and down through the same mechanism. So that's the idea. That's how it's going to work, basically. So now let's go back to the ground level. But that's the whole thing. Like, all I really need to do is get these locations into the registry on the servers. And then in the future, it's really easy for me to update a script that just, like, replaces this whole thing with what I actually want. But the idea is that these islands show up only in places where there's few instances, right? So here, for example, we're in like 600 instances, right? So then it's going to be an area, the player can build some kind of dock here, and then there's a teleporting mechanism to go up to their base that's so high up in the sky that it doesn't even render. And the reason for that is that it allows the player to build something like obscenely huge that they normally wouldn't be able to build because of lag reasons. Basically, we've repositioned everything so that players build large bases in places where the consequences don't matter. Makes sense? Whereas in normal Valheim, you build a large base where you're playing, and then the consequences matter forever. Because you're playing near your base. Makes sense? And you have to deal with it. Whereas when you allow players to build really far out of the way, I have a theory at least, we still need to playtest this more, but the idea is that, like, players want to overbuild and make big stuff. They just don't because it's so laggy and it causes so many problems for other people. So what if everybody could get their own little designated spot where they can easily get building resources, they can teleport stuff up there, they have a good rate for buying things, then they can just build to their heart's content. You know what I mean? And then it, I have a theory that this will help. So that's why, like, the beginning of the game experience has changed a bunch for the replayability, but then also the building experience has changed in the end game, right? For the World Serpent and for these floating rock biome things that you see here. And also you'll get, you know, sometimes you'll just get, like, random treasure chests on the island as well. Because I realized, like, every island should have something on it, just in case, like, someone crashes into it. Like, if their experience is just, oh, the islands are just things I crash into while I'm trying to do something else, then, like, they're a pain in the ass. You know, they're not actually fun, right? So, like, ideally, every island at least has the potential to reward the player somehow. Right now, these are just placeholders, so you're going to find these, and the only thing you can do right now is just get this. You know, it's going to be some other box. Sometimes there's 3 treasure chests. Sometimes there's 2. You know, it depends on the RNG. But yeah, these are the placeholders for the floating islands. You can learn more information about that. I have a whole YouTube video about the floating islands. So if you want to contribute one of these floating island projects, like if you want to build one yourself, then just check out that video. You can just Google or go to YouTube and search for JP Valheim floating island, or just Valheim floating island. I think that'll do it. Let me check real quick. Make sure I'm not talking nonsense. YouTube. Okay, Valheim floating island. Bum bum bum. Build a floating island. There we go. Valheim, build a floating island. Yeah, okay. So if you search for like JP Valheim build a floating island, then you'll get the video guide I did that's all about like making the floating islands and contributing to them. Basically, I think I've got like 12 different designs people have contributed. Dakar's made some stuff. Sean Connery's made some stuff. Some of the players on Path of Magic have made some stuff. Rose did. Index did. I think Reaper did something. I don't remember everybody. I'm sorry if I forgot someone who contributed. But if you want to contribute, it's a great way to like make a build that like is kind of something different than what you're used to. Because for these floating islands, like the point isn't to make something really crazy that a player can play in. The point is to make a really cool looking platform that inspires the player to build something really cool. So like you have to be a bit nuanced because like it's not just a floating castle. It's a platform that inspires the person to make a floating castle. Make sense? So that's why like they kind of need some flatness to them, right? So for the base, the part that's on the ground is going to be the same for all the different islands. It's like a placeholder basically. And my only intention with the part on the ground is I want to make it so that players feel incentivized to make a dock for their floating base. Make sense? So like there's going to be land, and then the player will have boats in this area. Like makes sense because they have to sail to their base, and it's probably going to be in an area they like. There's like 100 of these on each server. So probably they're going to, you know, not like one because it's in a bad spot, and then they'll find one that's in an ideal spot for what they want from their base, so they'll use that. So the idea is to trigger the player into making docks for their floating base. Makes sense? So there'll be some kind of minimal teleport system revolving around this crystal. Probably you just punch the crystal, and then it teleports you up. Something really basic. And then I just need some way to kind of inspire players to organically build docks for their boats. And I think as long as I make this kind of blank, the player's going to feel like making it their own. This is their dock, their entrance to their floating base. Make sense? So I'm pretty sure that's the angle I'm going to take. And for that to work, probably all I have to do is make this land like a little bit smaller and make it so that the chests that spawn are full of core wood and ash wood. So like every one of these bases spawns with all the stuff to build a dock, right? And that reminds me, I need to add bone maw repellent. Let me add that to my list actually. We'll do something simple where like if you have a bone maw trophy, then the moment a bone maw does anything within, you know, 100 meters of your trophy, they just get deleted. That way, like, you can put a bone maw trophy up and know that you're protected from them. I'll figure it out, but probably it'll be something like that. Add bone maw repellent system for mounted bone maw trophy. Okay. Good, good. Okay, so that... Okay, and then also make the dock. Make the dock... Oh, no, the blank builder's island dock have wood resources in chests. Okay, cool. All right, let's see. So, there's so many other things I could go over, to be honest. But what about you all listening right now? Is there anything in particular you recommend, or not recommend, you're curious about with Enigma Mode 2.0, or something that you think I should mention, or a question I can answer? Let me know. I'm looking at the chat, so I'll make sure to address it. Until then, I'm gonna think for a little bit. What other mechanics were added? There were so many things I've added in this patch, to be honest. Like, way more than I can cover in a reasonable amount of time. Let's see. Okay, well, I'm gonna look at the changelog real quick, and then you can see that might help me remember. I guess I can talk about forking. Yeah, why not? I'll talk about forking. Okay. So forking is another thing that's meant to add more like replayability to the Valheim experience. Basically, when you run a server with Enigma Mode, the paths are going to get developed, and then when other players join, they may feel that they miss out because they can't develop the path anymore. Well, not to worry, because now they can fork. I'll show you how that works in a moment. To be honest, I should actually just use... I should use the forks that other people already made. Okay. So basically, in Path of Magic, as you progress, you do those boss chests, right? Once you make a I actually thought this was the spot that the fork was in. Interesting. But once you do the motor boss chest, then you get the ability to make these things. Okay? So this isn't available in the very beginning. It's available later on because you have to defeat the motor boss chest. But the reason I did it that way is because, like, basically when the player first joins, there's no benefit to them being able to make their own Enigma paths because they see the Enigma paths, it's brand new to them, they're new to something being made in front of them, it has powerful novelty. It makes more sense to give them the ability to start their own branches after the novelty of that has worn off. Because if I just were to give it to them in the very beginning, there's not really any benefit to that. Whereas giving them something like the motor tiers early on has a lot of benefit because it has a lot of consequences. It means that, now you can make your fully fledged base pretty much as soon as you get iron. Like, that's pretty early compared to, having to get black metal and all those other things and do motor and do all that nonsense. But in this situation, I think that it's important because basically, while yes, I added the dragon tiers to the Eikthyr boss chest, that made the Eikthyr boss chest much more worthy. It invalidated the motor boss chest. Makes sense? Because now that you have the main progression item, why do you care about doing the motor boss chest if you got it already? Makes sense? So I needed to replace that with something that's interesting and like a reward worth doing. Make sense? So that's why when you complete the motor boss chest, you gain the ability to fork paths. And this is what a fork looks like. Basically, you go to an existing path, and then you go like this. You go fork, and then it starts a fork, and you have to pay some stuff, and then it just makes another path. The forks are the same as the other paths. This is an old format path, so don't worry about it. It looks all big. All the paths you see on new servers will look like this. And whenever you make a fork, You can just make another fork off of the fork, off of the fork, off of the fork. It doesn't care. It's the same thing as a normal Enigma path. It follows all of the same rules. So basically, you make a fork, you can now pick any direction to send your path off on. But keep in mind that in doing so, the path is still going to try and curve and turn and change, you know? So you still have to kind of keep that in mind when you use it. It's not just going to go straight in a direction. And eventually it'll get to the end of the world. So that's player forking. That gives people like more stuff to do. It gives them more control over the path building experience. Let's see. Teens asked if a player can fork off the serpent or only off of... Oh! I never thought of someone forking off of the serpent. That's kind of interesting. But no, it's only off of these. You can't, at the moment, you can't fork off of the serpent. But every one of these ends in a portal to the serpent. And these are underneath the serpent. So they are pretty close by where the serpent is. Makes sense? So as you can see here, the player was making a fork, and then it stopped, asked them for coin piles, made the staircase. They gave it the coin piles and kept going on. Make sense? So that's forking. Let's see. Fish says to talk about the loot rework. Ah, that's a good point, actually. Hey. That's cool. Yeah, feel the effects of loot hoarding. Yeah. Well, ideally, the gameplay loop that works for Valheim essentially is you hoard loot, and then you build something, and you run out of building materials, and then you go get more, and then you build something, and you run out, and you go get more. You know? That's the gameplay loop. Welcome, Gray. Welcome. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. And hello, Cherry, by the way. I saw your comment. I meant to say hello, but I was distracted there. Let me see. Did I miss anyone else's comments here? Bum, bum, bum. Nice. Okay. And hello, Nomad. Welcome, welcome. Hey, everyone's here. Cool. So basically, okay, I'll talk about the loot rework because Fish is right. I did changes to make it more accommodating to get different kinds of resources. So I'll talk about that. It has to do with boss fighting, but I need to go to the bathroom, so I'll be right back. While I'm gone, if you have any questions, anything you want to ask about 2.0 or how it's going, any of the features, anything you think I should explain, just let me know. I'll get to it as soon as I get back. One moment. All right. Awesome. Okay, so yeah, let's look at I'll give an example with one of the bosses. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, in Enigma, the boss fights are like an end game experience. They're a really challenging thing that's very hard to do. I'm trying to develop the system in a way where players have fun fighting bosses, but never actually succeed in killing them. Or most of the time, they never succeed. Okay? Because in my head, that's what I want. I know that that's not a popular thing. I'm not going to go into the details of why I think this matters. I'm just going to explain that that's the goal. Make it so that it's fun for players, to try and destroy bosses without actually succeeding in killing the boss. Okay? So, look at this. I love seeing these areas. Like, you can tell people have been fighting the bosses, right? But, so, this is kind of tricky because, okay, if the players try to get... If the players try to get the boss and they don't kill the boss, they're going to feel like they failed. So I have to make it so that even if they don't kill the boss, they feel like they got something out of it. So the idea is to make a meta where you can get a lot of resources by summoning the bosses and killing the ads while the boss is present. Make sense? So I'll try and show the basics of it here. So spawn, sword, black metal. It's going to give some random thing here. Uh-oh. What's going on here? I'm getting a disconnection icon there. Oh, no, we're good. We're good. All good. Looks like all is good. Okay. Alright, so... Do I have my sword? Where's my sword? There it is. Okay, so we're going to spawn the boss here. And to spawn them, it's the same as normal. You don't do anything fancy. So it's like deer trophy, right? Trophy, deer. I don't know, like, let's do like 6 of them. Okay, we have our deer trophies. Boom, we make our sacrifice. And, okay, now the boss shows up. So, in Enigma mode, bosses are absolutely crazy. Obviously, I have, like, God mode on and everything, so it's fine. But basically, you'll start, and then the Eikthyrs are really strong. And not only are they really strong, but there are constant raids happening around you at the same time. And the raid is a random chance. So it looks like we got the bat one, right? And if I just start killing stuff, obviously I can't actually... Obviously, I'm not actually, like, fighting them, right? They would have just killed me. They kill you in one hit. It's like, really hard to fight them, to be honest. It's supposed to be that way. But the idea is, like, we want to make a meta where you can create a dynamic where 2 players can work together, one distracting the boss, and the other, like, killing monsters. Because as long as the bosses are around... When the monsters die, they're going to drop extra loot. Makes sense? So, let's just try this. Okay, I killed everything. Obviously, you know, I didn't really slay those Eikthyr. But, as you can see, we were just killing bats, which normally would only drop leather scraps, right? Let's see, what kind of items showed up here? We have... Bum-ba-da-bum, bum-bum-bum-bum. Okay, so we have some tin ore, we have rubies, we have copper, we have scrap iron, we have coins, okay? This is just from just those couple of bats that I killed during that. But I can see that, like, there needs to always be... gray dwarfs around Eikthyr. So that wasn't actually intense enough from my perspective. Yeah, the bats are like too chill. There needs to be a lot of monsters like fighting other monsters. That part's really important. So not really sure how to handle that. Let's look at it again and see. Where's my sword? My broken sword. Okay, so now, for example, yeah, we got the ghost event, right? So you just get, like, a random event each time. Let's let's try a little bit of a different strategy now. Okay, I was getting confused by all the drops from before. So now I just have drops from stuff right now. I'm just gonna, like, kind of, yeah, just slay a couple things here. We have some of the monster variants happening already, as you can see. That's fine. And so, I can already tell, to be honest, I probably have to tune it up more. Because, like, for it to actually work for the player, it needs to feel like, damn, you get a lot of stuff from doing this. And for the player to do it properly, they need to be able to survive and everything. So, it looks like I need to adjust the scripts more so that when a new monster spawns and there's an ether nearby, it also spawns a Grey Dwarf. Because right now, there's something missing. I'm, like, only getting the extra variety from the raid, but I'm not getting all the Grey Dwarves that are kind of important for the ether fight. So add Grey Dwarf spawn to monster type create while ETH is present. Okay? So let's just see how this loot table looks. Basically, we'll just keep killing these ethers until this timer passes. Or we'll just keep killing monsters. Obviously, the player could never do it this way, because they would just get ganked. They'd need somebody to distract the ethers, basically. Bum-ba-da-bum-ba-da-bum. Okay. So there we go. They're gone. And then we got... Let's see, we got change, we got coins, we got silver necklaces. Yeah, so basically, I need to up these rates. And that's something that just a little bit of playtesting is usually enough to tell. Like, I need to up the rates for the building loot from the World Serpent layer and also from the building resources. Because, like, I want it to be a situation where players feel like there's loads of monsters and they can farm the monsters, right? In this case, there's just not enough monsters there. Like, really, that's what's missing. There needs to be loads of monsters, so then the players can, like, come here, kill the monsters, get a bunch of loot on the ground, and then just harvest all of their loot. As if they're doing a dungeon. Make sense? But obviously, there need to be more monsters, and there needs to be more loot. But I feel pretty clear on what to do with that moving forward. So, let's see. We've talked about loot. We've talked about the World Serpent. We've talked about forking. There's the behavior variant package. That's a whole thing. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I changed mastercrafted items. That's right. Okay, so for those of you who played before, mastercrafted items are like better kilns, better furnaces, you know, a workbench that doesn't need shelter. There's stuff like that. Basically, you find a coin trader in the wild, and they give you a credit to build a mastercrafted workbench, which doesn't need any shelter, okay? Or an invincible bed, which, you know, you could place somewhere and not have to worry about monsters destroying it because it's freaking invincible. Make sense? So, these mechanisms had a problem before, because once the player builds one of them, then nothing happens. So, instead of talking about it, though, I'm actually just going to find a mastercrafted coin trader, and I'll make the thing so you see the actual process. Because basically, I changed it, so now you get a credit if you dismantle a mastercrafted piece. So before, once you built it, it was done. That was it. You couldn't get it back. But now, I'm making a way to get them back. But first, we need to see how the actual mastercrafted stuff works in the first place. So if we just travel down the World Serpent, we'll find some coin traders. Here we go. We have a builder selling some crystal, a longship master. Just keep going. A scout. Here we go. All right, this one has a mastercrafted Yggdrasil porridge extractor. Okay, there we go. That's a perfect example. So he wants 3 piles of coin for his mastercrafted Yggdrasil porridge extractor. Obviously, a player's gonna have no fucking idea what that does, but whatever. I'm just gonna assume they're rich. Okay, we get the thing, and then it turns into a chest. Okay? There's a bunch of flavor text you can read. You get some extra loot for doing it, right? We get some gemstones and some other stuff. And then you get this key. Now, this is how all the mastercrafted items work. Basically, you paid for it, but if you're nice, you can wait until you're near your friends, and then you can activate the key by throwing it, and everybody nearby will get a credit. Okay? So yeah, you could just use it on yourself, or you could use it around 3 people, and then everyone gets 1 credit. So it's better for you to share them or activate them near other players, because then you get more. Well, you don't get more, but in total, people get more. You know what I mean? So basically, we did that, and now we have a mastercrafted credit for a Yggdrasil porridge extractor. So this is pretty confusing. But all of the extractors rely on Yggdrasil roots, okay? So if I go maybe like... Nah, that place... I need to find an area that's actual mistlands on the world path, but whatever. Looks like we didn't have any on this RNG. Basically, now I just find a Yuga root, and I build a normal sap extractor, but instead of being a normal sap extractor, it gets turned into the mastercrafted unit that I just got, right? I just have to find one of these roots. Bum, 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 bum. And obviously, things like the workbench, like, you don't have to find a Yuga root. The only reason I have to find a Yuga root is because, there we go, is because this is a certain kind of mastercrafted item that works on the sap extractor. Okay? So now, let's make sure I'm not in ghost mode. Now I go near the root, and we make our sap extractor. And then, boom, look at that. We see some crazy animation stuff. And then if we look at it, it says, mastercrafted Yggdrasil porridge maker. Okay? So you can probably imagine what it does. But now, for example, let's build another one. Oh, I have a black metal scrap solidifier. So that's actually because I had another mastercrafted credit. Okay? But now if we build another one, okay, now it's just a normal sap extractor. Okay? Now, there we go. We see the porridge maker has something in it. And what is it? Yggdrasil porridge. So the idea with these is like, well, the concept of the root being magical and making something through the extractor is actually really flexible because it's magical, right? So, like, it's just as believable that this makes Yggdrasil porridge as it is sap. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that weird. And so you can see how you find special mastercrafted items that become, like, basically free sources of certain things. There's, like, 40 different kinds of mastercrafted things. And they're all stuff like this. Like a kiln that uses wood instead of coal as the fuel. Or a kiln that has 200 storage spaces instead of 20, etc., etc. Now, this is all old. It's all already been like this. The thing that I changed in this patch is that now, if you disassemble a mastercrafted item, you actually get the credit to then make it. Okay? So see, it says Overeager Jarl, reverse engineered. Okay? And now if I place another one, boom, we made the new one. Okay? This fixes a problem that players used to have, where, like, once you place one, let's say you want to move to a different base, like, that's it. Like, it's placed. Now, if you place new ones, they're just normal. You see what I mean? There was no way to keep the credit. Whereas now, if you disassemble it, boom, it disassembles, and then you get the credit for it. This does mean that technically a player could steal another player's mastercrafted stuff from their base. That's why I added the shouter, so that the server makes a log saying, okay, this person took this thing. And, like, I know that people may be paranoid about that, but, like, I mean, to be honest with you, you can shoot a fire arrow on someone's roof. You can steal all the items from their house. Like, there's already loads of things you could do if you're trying to grief someone. I don't think that I should restrain and limit players to try and prevent griefing when the game itself can't prevent griefing. Does that make sense? So I get it. People might be concerned someone's going to steal your mastercrafted stuff. From my perspective, like, okay, at least now you can trade your mastercrafted things. Let's say you have something, you don't want it anymore, but you're playing with a friend and you want to give it to them. Now you can just tell them to disassemble it and then they can build it wherever they want. Or you can disassemble yours and then build it in their base. Or you can disassemble yours and then build it in your other base. I think there's more to gain than to lose. And in general, I've learned that lesson over and over again, with Valheim in particular. Server managers are too controlling, and we try and limit people too much. And this counters the reality of Valheim itself, which shines as a sandbox building survival game. So, like, limiting people prevents them from playing how they want to play. Make sense? So in general, it's better to not limit people and to give them new freedoms that, yeah, maybe they could be abused, but there's also a bunch of other ways that they can have more fun, and probably people are going to do those more than abuse each other, because it's just not that fun to abuse each other if you design the game properly. Make sense? But all right, we got that. Mastercrafted items are a thing. Oh yeah, Teen said something about the mounts. 1 second. Patch notes say mounts can go to Serpent. Can eggs be hatched up there? Ah, so the eggs follow the same rules. So you could hatch Askfin eggs in the Ashlands area of the World Serpent. So, like, here, you couldn't do it. But in this area, like right here, yeah, you could do it. And let me actually find another mount, because I want to show you how the teleporting works. Because you teleport in the World Serpent, you teleport, and it doesn't just teleport you. It also teleports your wolf, or your boar, or your Askfin, or your cart. So I should probably show exactly how that works. Let me just find a, we'll find another mount offer somewhere. Builder, we're looking for a Beastmaster. Oh, bank, okay. Yeah, and this is another new thing, by the way. So you're used to the banks, you playing on the server, you're used to the banks being a physical location. The banks are still there, except I'm going to have to rework them in the future because there are too many instances. I need to reduce them to like 100, and they're like 1,000. So the first step I'm doing to that is I'm making it so now there's a diverger called a bank teller, and the bank teller has the functionality of the bank. Okay, so I can go up to this bank teller, and I can say coins, and then I get to withdraw the coins for one coin pile as if I'm at a bank, because I'm near the coin teller. Make sense? So all the functionality you all used to just get from the banks, now you can also get them from these random bank tellers that you find in the world. Okay? Teensy was asking about the chicken eggs. Yeah, so those are all based on the number of them in each area. I think it's limited to, like, there can be 7 boar, 7 wolves, 7 locks, and 7 chickens. I think it's something like that. So technically, if you have 7 of each, you can still get too many monsters and make a bunch of lag. But probably what happens to you in that case is you were hatching the hens, but there were already at least 7 hens or chickens in that area. If there were only 3, I don't know how to explain that. I'll have to look into that. Maybe you can remind me when it happens next. Because I'm not trying to limit breeding completely. It's like, basically, my attitude with breeding is that it should be limited so that you can't make breeders, but players who like having pet hens and stuff should be free to. You know what I mean? So, like, honestly, I probably need to balance that whole thing up at some point. We'll figure it out. Let's see. What else? What else should I talk about today? Yeah, redid the Toon quest. I also made the Toon a bit different. The Nar, the boats, the islands, the first boat system, World Serpent. Oh yeah, the goblins steal less. I don't know if this, you'll notice maybe, but basically the goblins used to steal the loot 60% of the time. Now they only steal it 40% of the time. So basically higher loot rates for everything. The mounts, the bankers, mastercrafted items, the meadow start temple or the random meadow, the path redesign, World Serpent, the biome, the behavior package, floor trader purchases. Let's see, am I on the... yeah. So just to be clear, actually, to those of you who don't know about this. So, in Enigma Mode, there's a system to purchase building materials using coins. So you can go buy prices 2, for example. And then I get a list of all the prices, right? Just need to give it a moment here. At least I should get a list. Oh! Something's wrong there. Oh, I vaguely remember this before. Yeah, I think I like added a comma somewhere by mistake and then I forgot to note it. There we go. Now it's noted. Add fix buy prices 2. Okay. Bum bum bum. Buy prices 1. Maybe this one works better. No, they're both bust right now. Well, anyway, normally you can just look at this and it tells you the price. Okay, so it oh, I see what happened. Yeah, the bracket is missing on the end and it's causing everything to fail to parse. Okay, I removed it by mistake at some point with a copy paste all command. But basically you look at that and then it's like, hey, if you spend this many coins, you'll get this. Okay? So let's say that normally if I were to spend 905 coins, I would get a fancy ultra cart. Because I'm on the World Serpent, I get a double return on my purchases. So this is another incentive so that players are more likely to build on the World Serpent. And the same thing applies on the floating rocks. On the floating rocks, it'll probably be even more, maybe like 3 times your purchase. But so basically, normally this would only give us 1 cart. But because we're on the World Serpent, we get 2 ultra carts, right? And that's how it works. Everything's the same price, but you get double what you would normally get if you bought anywhere else, okay? So that's just one of the incentives. Help keep people interested in building and doing that. Yeah, I changed nonsense chests too. Okay. Let's take a look at this. Bum 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 bum. I guess I'll do it like that. Alright. So, in Path of Magic, or in Enigma Mode, there are these things called nonsense chests. Valheim has a lot of inventory management, and I personally despise it. So I added something called a nonsense chest. You can go say nonsense, and it will convert the closest chest to you to a bigger chest called a nonsense chest. They used to be limited, so it was one really, really big chest. Make sense? But now you can have multiple. As you can see here. There we go. Now we have 4 of these nonsense chests. And I don't remember what the limit is. I think I limited it to like 8 or something like that. And this just allows you to have more storage like in a less visually intense place, if that makes sense. Obviously, you know, some people get frustrated that, oh, but now I can just make these big chests. It's like, yep. I know that it's confusing because now, okay, there's little chests, bigger chests, other chests, there's barrels, right? But you can just make any of them into nonsense chests, okay? So it doesn't really matter. It becomes more about, like, the visual. That being said, eventually, you run out of credit. So, like, there's only a certain amount, yeah. You can only have 10 nonsense chests. So eventually, you hit a limit. And each lightning bolt goes to where one is. So, like, let's say you're trying to find them. Now we know, okay, that's a nonsense chest, so is that one, so is that one, but these ones are normal. Just if you're, like, trying to move stuff around in your base. Okay, so nonsense chests are now easier to make. There's more of them. And on a technical note, Rose discovered that the craft from container mods are more reliable when the chest has your creator ID. So I changed how these work so that it retains your creator ID as the person who originally made the chest. That's a thing. Let's see. Bum, bum, bum. All right. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about is the building warner. All right. This is a system I'm going to work on a little bit more. But basically, let's go somewhere populated. Maybe there's a goblin camp over here. A lot of Valheim's issues come from the fact that players want to build, and players like combat. So players will tend to build in an area that's close to where combat occurs. Valheim can't handle that, realistically. Valheim's reliable if... Valheim is reliable if you stay within certain limits. So there's only room for one building area in a loaded zone. You can't have a building area and a combat zone. You're going to have reduced performance in both. You need your building area is in a separate loaded zone than your combat area. And each combat area is in a separate loaded zone from other combat areas. That's really important. It helps a lot with performance. So basically, the problem, though, is that players will build and build and build, and then they overbuild in areas and end up like causing consequences for other players. So what I've done is I've made a warning system. So when you build in an area that's safe, you know, you just get this kind of stuff. Oh, not safe, actually. You see how it says consider building further away? You see that message? Consider building further away. Consider building further away. It's not actually stopping us. It's just saying this area has more instances, and it's right. There's 2,000 instances here, and that's because we are near a goblin camp, but also, yeah, that tower thing over there, okay? So basically, it can tell we're near these locations, and it's like, hey, that's a goblin camp. That's a combat area. You're building. So, like, what I need to do to improve the system more is make it so it references the thing, right? Because now you can see it. There's a very subtle message. Consider building further away, right? Very subtle. But if you do it over and over again, you'll notice. I can make the spacing better. It's spaced too high up. It needs to go down a little bit. Let me note that real quick. Set building warner to 0 offset. And then set building warner to give more context. Okay, so basically, this is a way to help players learn what areas are good to build in and what are bad to build in. Right now, it just says consider building further away, and it's too subtle. So I'll make it like more obvious later, right? But the basic idea is we're not stopping the player, we're just annoying them a little bit. Because when they build in an area that's crowded, they're going to get those messages. But if they find an area that's not crowded, let's go with something over here might work. Yeah, let's see. So if I build this now, there we go. So now I get a message, 2 times build health, but I don't get that warning about building further away. Make sense? So obviously right now it needs a little bit more polish, because basically what it needs to do is point the opposite direction of the thing triggering it, which is a bit more complicated. I can make that work, but it's yeah, definitely more complicated. Basically what I want to happen is I want it to be like this. So we're over here, right? And then there was that tower. There we go, right there. Let's say I'm over here and I start building. And now it's saying, consider building further away. Okay, looking aside for the fact that it's, you know, in tiny little text and isn't centered, it's really easy to miss and kind of hard to read before it passes. Let's assume they do read it. Consider building further away, like where? How do I know where is further away, right? There's no context to the player that is the reason it's telling me to build further away. So basically what I need is I place something, and then instead of consider building further away, it says this is too, or it like makes an arrow that points away from the thing causing it to say that. Make sense? It's kind of like this. If I go to my grave, or wait, what is it? My grave, my body, that's right. So if I say my body, then it makes a little arrow for a moment that points at my nearest tombstone, right? Okay? You see that? So basically I can take the same kind of idea, right? Like, oh, it makes this arrow, okay? And make it so whenever it does this, it's going to be like, consider building further away, and then actually like points the direction that you should go to get further away. Make sense? Because then it'll make sense. But right now it's like the warning's a little bit vague, right? The player's probably just going to learn to ignore the warning and then just, you know, keep building and doing their things. But that's fine. So let me make sure I noted everything. All right, set the building warner to no offset. Set the building warner to give more context with an arrow. Opposite arrow. Okay. Yeah, I wonder, will that be problematic? Yeah, only one way to find out. All right. Okay, so let's see. We've talked about the building Warner thing. We've talked about the boss fighting thing. I still need to balance that more. Changes to the nonsense chests, forking, the world serpent, the biome, the new commands, the start temple change, mastercrafted items, the changes to the bankers, the mounts. Need to work on the mounts, make them more fast. Narquest, TuneQuest, boats, islands. Okay, cool. All right, everybody. Well, that is it for this live stream. And just as a reminder, this is a completely public server. So if any of you watching want to try out some of the new Enigma Mode 2.0 features, especially if you're interested in building on the World Serpent, these are the kinds of things I'm looking for more feedback on. I'm trying to make a building paradise endgame. Like, that's the idea. So if you build and you try and build things and you encounter problems, tell me about it, because I don't want it to be abrasive. Like, Basically, I want the World Serpent to be a place that accommodates players building really big bases. Make sense? So if there's anything that's stopping you or getting in the way of that or making that hard or not enjoyable, let me know. I'm really trying to figure that out. I think that there's a lot of potential for these kind of like end game experiences in Valheim where you expect that the player is going to like build a really big base and then stop playing. Make sense? Like that's kind of what I'm going for now. I want to accommodate that. So I still need to work on the floating islands, still need to work on some other stuff, but honestly, the World Serpent itself is very ready for some playtesting. It's ready for people to start exploring it, using those features, seeing how the divergers spawn, getting the mounts, teleporting, doing all this stuff. I need to see how it works and how players feel about it and how they're able to use the features. And just as one more reminder, to actually learn about it, you just type say ride ? And then this is going to tell you about all of the commands. There's ride, rise, and my rock. Those are the 3 main commands, okay? So now you know about that. It's on Path of Magic. To get the information to Path of Magic, just look in the description to this video. You can find a Discord link or you can find a link to the Discord channel, the Poolside, and that has all the other information that you need to log into the server and everything. It's completely public. If you can find the information, you can join. You can join with your friends. You can use, client-side mods. That's all right. Just be careful with certain mods. Like, if you join and you have, 40, 50 mods running, it's going to cause us problems. So please just, use as few mods as you feel that you need. I encourage people to use mods, but, it makes issues for me that I have to deal with, and then I develop less if you try and join and you have 65 mods on your client, okay? So try and keep it minimal. Use as few quality of life mods as you feel really matter to you. If you have 10 or 20 quality of life mods that are important for you to play, it's probably fine, probably not going to cause me too many issues. But if you have 50 or 60 and you're adding overhauls and you don't know what you're doing, just don't, please. Anyway, so yeah, you can join the public server, really open-minded to these things. Like I said, there's no mod pack, there's no character enforcement. You can join on an old character to explore if you want to be more powerful and not die so easily. You could join on a new character and have a brand new experience. Whatever you feel most comfortable with, that's what matters. I'm going to be putting out more content about this and things to do in Enigma mode, but not in a rush. Gonna give people time to play these features and polish things, take my time developing it properly so that by the time Deep North comes out, I have a fully polished product basically that's available for everybody and I can push to the masses. That's the idea. Alternatively, if you want to support my work, then consider supporting me on Patreon. It's really helpful. Thank you, all of you who have been supporting me so far. It's made a big difference and has helped me focus more on Valheim stuff. Alternatively, you could just like a video on YouTube or subscribe to the channel. That's also helpful, especially if you share the videos with someone else who loves Valheim, especially if they like server management and that kind of thing. Really, I want to find more people who want to play these experiences so we can spread the word about EWP. So if you know anybody who wants to try these things out, talk to them, let them know, send them a link to my channel or something. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.